down to business.
When he drinks, he thinks.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the #1 liquid-fueled, liquid lubricated show on the interwebs. This is the Whiskey Musings Broadcast. And I had a couple little hiccups here and there getting on. I don't know why. I just apparently wasn't paying attention or whatever. I got to quit doing that. Anyway, I hope everybody is having a fantastic weekend. It got fairly warm here today, just as a case in point. So I didn't really do, a lot of strenuous activity. I got most of my stuff. Yes, 3 Chevy, too much whiskey does give you hiccups. You are correct. Anyway, I got most of my outdoor work done, most of it done early in the morning. And so I was able to stay relatively, low key for most of the day. But I last night, Mrs. Whiskey wanted to watch a particular movie. Now, it's not your mainstream movie. It's actually a movie that was put together by a completely third party. They in fact, this was their first foray into the movie biz, and I've got that a little bit later on in the program. Plus, tonight I have a fantastic question that was sent in for tonight's questions for whiskey. And I think you guys are probably going to like it. I know I did. I thought I found it quite interesting. And then let's see, what else do I have on tap here? Well, of course we have a bunch of Biden stuff as per usual. And North Korea is pounding their chest a little bit, I think. For a moment, and I'll bring that to you hopefully here in a little bit later in the program. But before we get started on the full thing, we've got to, of course, let everybody know what I'm drinking. So tonight is the Redneck Riviera Whiskey, Work Hard, Play Hard, from, of course, John Rich, the famous singer from the country duo Big and Rich. And yes, so that is what I am drinking tonight. I do not have the Lucky Shot glass. I went back to, or the Lucky Shot USA glass. I went back to my normal glass, mainly just because of the fact I didn't realize it hadn't been washed yet. And so it was sitting on the counter waiting to be washed, and I didn't realize it until it was a little too late to put it into the freezer, because I like my glass cold. So, 3 stones, 2 fingers in 1 glass. Almost the Frank Sinatra's methodology for drinking whiskey, but hey, it's good enough for me. I've got a bit of an update on the hats. Also, before we get started, real quick, the manufacturer of this particular hat apparently is telling me that they are back ordered. With no ETA. So I even, I tried to get them, I ordered them, and they tell me that they're back ordered. I'm going to have to try and figure something out for it. But we'll see if either these guys can do it, or if I have to go and find another source for a slightly different brand. But anyway, it's kind of sad too, because I was really looking forward to bringing that forward. But anyway, okay, so let's get on to tonight's sponsor. And of course, usually on Saturdays, it is the Institute on the Constitution. The Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission: to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him, and 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.whiskeymusings.online, to sign up, and while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is iotc.whiskeymusings.online to get great content to learn about how our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's iotc.whiskeymusings.online. Or if you just want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, go to constitution.whiskeymusings.online. It is an 1/8 inch of leather there, roughly, and the pages inside are water resistant. Check out this binding. It goes all the way through the leather and everything else. They have a 100-year warranty against materials and manufacturing defects. So if something goes wrong with this thing in 100 years, you can send it back to them. They'll either fix it or replace it for free. Nice rounded corners. Of course, it is buddy tested, buddy approved, and also very, very helpful when you are a young scout, young Boy Scout, going for your civil service badge. I know one person in particular, my youngest whiskey warrior out there, who used it for that. Got it as a Christmas gift. It's great stocking stuffer. Absolutely perfect. Do me a favor, go and check out the Institute on the Constitution today. And of course, I thank them for allowing me to be an affiliate and for essentially sponsoring the show. All right, let's move on to the next segment, which is On This Day in American History. And of course, on this day in American history, we read from the American Patriots Almanac, which is written by William J. Bennett, John T.E. Cribb, chock full of all kinds of American trivia and factoids. It is my go-to every Saturday night for this segment, and tonight we will be discussing our expansion, the U.S.'s expansion. Go West, young man. In July 1865, New York Tribune editor Horace Greeley popularized an enduring American slogan when he advised in his newspaper, "Go West, young man, and grow up with the country." Thousands of men and women were already doing just that, striking out for western frontiers in search of cheap land and wide-open opportunities. Each decade, the Census Bureau calculates the mean center of population, the place where an imaginary map of the U.S. would balance if all residents were the same weight. In other words, it's the middle point of where we all live. As the nation has grown, the center of population has moved west. In 1790, it lay near Chestertown, Maryland. By 2000, it lay more than 1,000 miles away near Edgar Springs, Missouri. Now, here's a list of some of those locations. In 1790, it was 23 miles east of Baltimore, Maryland. In 1800, it was 18 miles west of Baltimore. In 1820, it was 16 miles east of Moorfield, West Virginia. In 1840, it was 16 miles south of Clarksburg, West Virginia. In 1860, it was 20 miles south by east of Chillicothe, Ohio. I just mincemeat that. I know I just did. Anyway, 1880, it was 8 miles west by south of Cincinnati, Ohio, in Boone County, Kentucky. In 1900, it was 6 miles southeast of Columbus, Indiana. In 1920, it was 8 miles southeast of Spencer, Indiana. In 1940, it was 2 miles southeast by east of Carlisle, Indiana. In 1960, it was 6.5 miles northwest of Centralia, Illinois. In 1980, it was a quarter mile west of DeSoto, Missouri. DeSoto, Missouri. Got to pronounce that right. In 2000, it was 2.8 miles east of Edgar Springs, Missouri. And I can tell you that I know, well, that was tonight's On This Day in American History. But I can tell you that I know that we're actually in kind of a 60-40 split in terms of the Mississippi, where roughly 60% of the population is east of the Mississippi, and roughly 40% is west of the Mississippi. Now, if you take a look at the map and you look at the difference in land area, it is pretty immense in terms of the difference in the actual open land area, land base area in that split. And so there's a lot of there's a lot more land than there are people in the West in terms of that kind of thing. And you know, there's reasons, but anyway, so, oh, okay. So it looks like I did get called out. Doesn't surprise me any because I messed it up. So Deb over on Facebook calls me out and says, hello, everyone. Trump was on fire. When is he not? Chillicothe. And then she says, haha, you good whiskey. Yeah, I'm good. All right. Don't let me get a big head now, damn it. Anyway. So I guess that's how it's pronounced. Wonderful. All right. Yeah. So there we go. Speaking of, getting a big head. This is a great segue, isn't it? Speaking of getting a big head, apparently Joe Biden's not doing as well in the polls as what a lot of people think that he is. You know, that he's got a lot of his supporters out there. But let me go ahead and show you this. This popped in the Epoch Times, which actually I've seen it in a couple other places, but this popped in the Epoch Times. Joe Biden's public approval falls near the lowest levels, polls show. And this is mainly according to the Reuters Ipsos poll that right now, apparently 54% of Americans disapprove of the president. Now, I don't understand why that number isn't higher. It should be. Should be a lot higher, but only 40% approve of his actions. And as you look at the line and you look at the graph here, go up there. Look at the graph. You can kind of see the line in the last few months has sort of flattened out. It's not quite as jagged as what it was in the first part of the year and the first part of his presidency, where it was kind of up and down, and changed a lot. Now it's starting to sort of level out a little bit. Now what's interesting is that only adds up to 94%. So there's a good 6% difference that apparently people either just don't know or whatever. But 40% approval rating, I don't understand how that can happen. But here's the key. And this is something that, you know, a lot of people, when you have a poll like this and a presidential poll like this, you can actually find different demographics voting in different ways. And so things like, age or ethnic group or something like that really, really, really can make a difference, because you could have a differential between, one group of people being much higher setup versus another group of people being, lower. And then that sort of evens out or averages out to what you see here. Now, most of the time, averaging and doing averages like this, sorry, cholera, doing averages like this can actually, sorry, I stole that line from Mark Levin, can actually, not necessarily reflect or demonstrate a special, a special situation. But here's the thing. Typically with Biden, especially because of his things like, the whole student debt relief and all of that stuff, he was polling really, really high in the Gen Z kind of group. And so, and with some millennials. But when we take a look at this now, obviously, Democrats and Republicans, those guys are going to be flipped upside down, because of course the Democrats are going to say, yeah, he is really, really good, even though he isn't. And we all know this. And of course the Republicans are going to say, yeah, he's really, really bad, which is true. But here's the thing that I found interesting when they broke this down. So if you go through these, if you look at his numbers, so here's like whites versus non-whites, and non-whites, have changed position. They used to kind of be, it would vary above and below, as you can see in the graph. It's the middle graph here. But now they're actually polling in the disfavorable status. And then when you start looking at education wise, which are these next two graphs, you have college educated and non-college educated. It's actually the college educated ones that believe that he is doing better. But again, it's not that much of a difference. We're talking about 57 to 42. So there's not a huge margin here, in terms of, college educated folks. And that, honestly, the college educated is probably because of the fact that he keeps saying he's going to, relieve student debt. But when you look at like communities, this is really odd, because most urban centers, honestly, are Democrat. If you take a look at most of the urban spaces, they are Democrat, and he's actually underwater only by a little bit, 48 disapproval to 45 approval. He's only underwater by a little bit, but that's still, that his urban centers are the ones that are really, really, the green energy folks, the folks that deal with, all of these different, the different agendas that he's got going on. That's really where a lot of Democrats sit. And so it's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting to see some of this breaking out. Now, as you can see, the rural folks, who are usually the more conservatives, are definitely more aligned with what you would normally see with a kind of a Republican base. But even the suburbanites are kind of breaking down. There's a 15-point difference between the 55% disapproval and 40% approval. And then if we look at gender, men versus women, now a lot of women have really been, pushing, because of obviously his support and approval of things like abortion and stuff, which is what the Democrats are still trying to run on that even today. But even with women, he's underwater for 53% to 39% disapproval approval. And with men, that's typical. Men doesn't. But here's the one that I found kind of interesting is the age. In the age bracket, in 18 to 39-year-olds, he's underwater 52% by 38%. In 40 and older, which is, this group, for the most part, you're looking at 56% to 42%. So he really is not polling well. This is really where some of this stuff is making a big difference in terms of his numbers. And now here's one, the income bracket. So less than 75,000 a year is underwater still, 56% to 38%. But over 75K, which is where a lot of his constituency has come from in the past, he's looking at 53% being disapproval versus 43%, a good 10-point difference there. And then when we talk about sectors and areas of the country, the Northeast, where he comes from, has got him underwater, 55% to 42%. In the Midwest, he's 52% under, disapproval to 42% approval. In the South, which is where he doesn't normally do well, it's 56% disapproval to 37% approval. And if you look at the West's numbers, which you count that for like California, Washington, Oregon, all of those places, you count all of those, and what do you see? You see 53% to 43%, a good 10-point difference there. So this whole thing, and what's funny is everything that he's been touting, all of the Bidenomics, all of this kind of stuff, everything he's been touting is exactly where it remains as the top worry. So his salesmanship on the whole Bidenomics thing is not happening. It's not happening the way that he thinks he thinks he's doing very well. So yeah, it's pretty bad right now in terms of his presidency. And just for comparison, not like it really matters, but just for comparison, Biden's rating is pretty close to being identical to Trump's rating at about the same point in his presidency. It's a relatively low number compared to their immediate predecessors of Barack Obama and George W. Bush. So anyway, this is part of the reason why I find it interesting that they, the rumor mill running around is that they are actually potentially through the back channels trying to find somebody who might be able to run for him, just because of the fact that the man's basically a vegetable. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. He's a vegetable who seems to want to eat children or lick them. I don't know. Anyway, moving on with a little bit more about Joe. One of the things that you can use as kind of an indication as to the likability of a president is, of course, his or her capability, or any candidate, not just a president, but any candidate, has to deal with the amount of money that they can garner and bring into play, and their fundraising. Well, this is where the Epoch Times kind of brought this up too. Joe Biden's 2024 campaign has raised over $72 million. Now, a lot of people look at that and they think, oh, wow, that's quite a bit of money, which for somebody who doesn't have a lot of money, yeah, that is quite a bit of money. But just to kind of give you a indication, okay, he's still not doing quite as well as what he should be. Okay. The fundraising is lower compared to previous American presidents at the time of the election cycle during the re-election. For an example, in 2019, then President Donald Trump and the Republican National Committee had raised $105 million in the second quarter, according to the Associated Press. Before that, former President Barack Obama had raised $85.6 million, not accounting for inflation, in the second quarter of 2011 when he launched his second presidential bid. So even though this is $72 million, it's not as though he's really outdistancing or outperforming some of his predecessors in terms of the amount of money that he's raising. And just to give you kind of a comparison, so Biden, not Biden, sorry. Where is it at here? So Trump is actually has actually raised, according to his own announcement, or the campaign's announcement, I should say, that they only raised $35 million in Q2 of this year, which is a little less than half of what Biden has raised. Ron DeSantis has raised $20 million in Q2. Other Republican candidates have reported, of course, a lot lower amounts, with Vivek Ramaswamy raising about 7.7, Nikki Haley at about 5.3, and Mike Pence receiving a whopping 1.2 million for his campaign at the end of Q2. Now, Robert F. Kennedy has raised $6.36 million between February and June, according to a disclosure filing. So even though, Joe has got more in his coffers right now, he's not really like far and away what we would expect, people to necessarily have in their campaign. And honestly, it pretty much kind of demonstrates realistically sort of the mediocrity that we have going on here. Okay. I know you Trump supporters, you're all like, oh, he's, great president and so on and so forth. But unfortunately, I mean, the man does have, and you have to be honest, he does have a bit of a likability problem with a lot of people who are not on the Trump train yet. And so the whole idea here is just to keep an eye on this money thing. Now, what's interesting also to note with this whole money deal is that, is it a foreboding of who potentially is going to end up in the office? Well, not necessarily, because of the fact that you could have a bunch of money and just, literally screw the pooch when it comes down to the actual election. But it also doesn't indicate the vigorousness of the electorate. I mean, not a lot of people are all that excited about this just yet. So we're going to have to watch this as time goes on and see exactly what occurs down the road with this whole thing. Well, Biden, in an effort to revitalize his student loan forgiveness, he has announced a $39 billion student loan forgiveness for over 800,000 borrowers. Now, here's the thing. That is significantly lower. In fact, that's less than 10% of what he was originally going to do in terms of the amount of it. But here's the thing. There's some nuances to what he's been able to do with this thing based off of the Supreme Court decision that just got handed down in the whole thing. And so in this particular case, he's announced this $39 billion student loan forgiveness for roughly 804,000 borrowers as part of fixes in an administrative failure that had held up relief for borrowers under their income-driven repayment plans. So even though the left has been touting, especially the all of the sycophantic Democrat lawmakers, they're all like, oh yes, he's fighting for the little guy to get relief for these. Well, let me kind of tell you a little bit about this program, okay? Here's the eligibility to find out how many people actually qualify for this. Okay. First of all, loan forgiveness under this new plan is only applicable on loans that were made under the individual, what did they call that? The IDR? What did they call? Oh, income driven repayment plans. So if you don't have an income driven repayment plan, then you're not even, you can't even get in here. Okay. The loan forgiveness also, so if you're on an IDR, you also have to have made between 240 to 300 monthly payments, which is the equivalent of 20 to 25 years of payments. Okay. And this is according to the press release that they put out, which you can look up. It's, right here. So you have to be in the program. You have to have already been paying for 20 to 25 years. The loan itself, in addition to being part of the IDR plan, the loan itself must either be a federal direct loan or a federal family education loan, known as an FFEL, held by the Department of Education, including Parent Plus loans. And then there's some other qualifications too, in terms of, when you were, having forbearance, when it's in forbearance is what they call it. So essentially gotten behind in your payments. So, this is, even though the left and the leftist news media is going to tout this thing, it's got a lot of little catches and quirks to it. It's not anywhere near the repayment that plan that he had talked about. And so apparently the Department of Education is going to start notifying the 804,000 borrowers over the oncoming weeks. So pretty much what's happening, just to kind of give you an idea, pretty much what's happening is they're not really forgiving the entire loan. They're just forgiving whatever's left. So if you haven't paid it off in the 20 to 25 years, they're going to go ahead and forgive that part of it. Now, the question is whether or not this is illegal or not. And, the way this is described, it sounds like this is sort of under the Department of Education. It might already be a part of the law that they tried to use. So, I'm not a lawyer, so I would have to, defer somewhat to the lawyers, but I think some of this, and actually most of this is what they're claiming anyway, is that most of this is due to the fact that there was errors in the Department of Education's accounting practices. And so some people ended up paying more and longer than what they were supposed to. So, it's just one of those weird kind of things. It's going to be interesting to watch to see if anybody sues under this and see it go again all the way to the Supreme Court. But the biggest thing, obviously, was the fact that the Supreme Court, when they ruled appropriately, the Supreme Court basically said, you can't just forgive something that's going to cost us like $400 billion. So anyway, this, obviously this is 10% of that, roughly a little bit less than 10% of the original loan debts. And it's very, very specific in terms of how it's going to be applied. So I don't know for sure whether this will get challenged, but if it does, I don't know. It's either one way or the other. But what's really sad about this is, of course, that's going to stick us with $39 billion. And it's going to, it unfortunately is going to raise our deficit and our debt again. So anyway, well, continuing on with the Biden saga. Okay. We have Hunter Biden's lawyers have, given a cease and desist order to Trump with regards to Trump's conversations about Hunter Biden's laptop deals and the cocaine at the White House and all of that stuff. They are claiming that what Trump is putting out there is dangerous rhetoric, and dangerous rhetoric, I should say. And they are fearing that there is going to be physical and violent action on the part of Trump's followers against Mr. Biden or his family. And the letter sent out by Abby David Lowell, ABBE. I don't know what that is, realistically, but anyway. And it was sent Thursday, and it was obtained by ABC News, had this statement in it. I am a little surprised to have to send this because it would seem that Trump is currently facing enough legal problems that he would not want to create any more liability for saying and doing things that could result in harm and injury. And because it appears you have enough to do in defending your client in various arenas now, and yet to come then to have to deal with one more legal issue in case. Mr. Lowell wrote that if Trump's followers are easy to trigger, and cited January 6th events and their tragic and even fatal consequences, which again, okay, just stop. This guy, oh my God. So this guy is saying that there was fatal things that happened on January 6th. The only person who died on January 6th as a direct result of violence was Ashley Babbitt. These people, they just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. But anyway, he is, they're trying to get Trump to stop talking about Hunter Biden, which is fine. Whatever. I mean, I don't see him doing this, but they sent a cease and desist order. If he continues, then they might be able to take legal action, by it. But again, I mean, I don't understand how this is going to be a bit of a problem, but, I don't see Trump doing this or not doing this. I don't see Trump, being worried about this that much, to be honest with you. And besides, realistically, you cannot, unless Trump were to actually go and say to someone, hey, I'll pay you X amount of dollars to go and, kick Biden's butt, let's say. Unless it can be proven that he did that, you can't get him for what somebody might or may or may not do just because somebody said something bad about someone. I mean, if that was the case, then Bernie Sanders would be liable for the congressional baseball shooter. Ben Shapiro and a few others would have been liable for some of the things that people claim that he pushed them to. So I really don't see how this could really hold any kind of legal water for this. I mean, the same thing goes with Nancy Pelosi's husband too. I mean, the guy who did that, you cannot hold a third party unless they specifically told that person or enticed that person specifically. Just like with January 6th, Trump cannot be held liable for what people do of their own accord. He did not incite the riot or anything else. And so, it's just, this is going to be interesting to see, but, Anyway, all right. So this past weekend, actually last night, last night my wife and I watched the Daily Wire production. The Daily Wire production called Run, Hide, Fight. And for those of you that may not have seen or heard of the trailer, I'm going to play you the trailer here in just a minute. but it was something that I wanted to see, and it kind of gives credence because one of the things that, of course, I've been talking about on this program and a lot of other people have been talking about, and of course we have the writer's strike and all of the, the writer's strike, and now the actors have gotten involved in it down in Hollywood. And of course you've got all this woke crap going on in Hollywood and stuff. And then of course you have, the release of Sound of Freedom. Excuse me, Sound of Freedom. Here, just this past Independence Day. And I actually believe that Hollywood, as a money-making movie machine, is actually, they are dying. They are in their last legs. And when you have some of these smaller entities that are able to produce and create content, just like this program and other programs that are out there, that it is just amazing for that to happen. But let me go ahead and bring this up for you here. And so this is the trailer for, I'm hoping I can get this. Yeah, this is the trailer for the official trailer for the movie Run, Hide, Fight.
In between breath, take the shot.
You've done really good out there, kid. The size of that deer, we're gonna be eating venison all summer.
On a day's work.
I think we need to see somebody again.
And by we, you mean me?
No, I mean us. Hey, that look in your eye. Guys in my unit had that look.
Maybe there's a brochure you can hand me so I can go? Is that Chris Jellick over there?
Is he doing something completely weird? Senior prank day. But we'll see all kinds of dumb stuff today. Swim captain will have Thai food delivered to class, and Becky Vaughn will set up her homemade slip and slide.
This is high school. Nothing that happens here matters in the real world.
Okay, we are in charge now, so please pull out whichever app you use to do live streaming video. Get them up and running and point it at me. Now!
Get down on the ground! Any more friends back there?
I'm calling 911.
Get back to your homeroom and stay put until...
You must be close.
You should be ashamed.
Very disturbing news out of Vernon Central High School.
Zoe.
In between breath, take the shot.
Is it safe to say that this might be our guardian angel? Do you want more people to die?
That's the last thing I want.
I'm gonna kill one person in this room every 5 minutes. You don't show your face.
Isn't it ironic that after all your hard work, people aren't gonna remember you?
No?
They're gonna remember me.
Okay, now I'm going to tell you, we watched this and it was riveting. Okay, it was riveting for a first time production of an organization that has had I'm going to say very little experience in the long range genre or the long form genre of a multiple hours. It was like an hour and 45 minutes roughly. It was incredible. it was riveting. The special effects were on point with just about any particular, any of the major movies without a whole bunch of like CGI and things like that. It was incredible. Yes, the story and the plot and the subject matter was very scary, okay, and hits home to a lot of people, all right? But when you look at the same time, I don't necessarily mean to say but at the same time, when you look at the quality of the acting, it is this young lady, the blonde that's in this, I can't remember her name, but she is apparently a actress that my wife has followed, and that's part of the reason why we ended up watching the movie. But it was incredible. And if smaller outlets, if places outside of Hollywood can do this kind of quality, then there literally is no reason why we can't have a parallel economy set up in the movie space. There is absolutely no reason. Now, that being said, there are a few other content things that are available on the Daily Wire. So I don't know if they have this released to the general public. I don't believe they do. So you do need to have a Daily Wire subscription in order to go and see it. But it is, I'm going to tell you, it's well worth it. It is well worth paying for a month of the Daily Wire. It's about the same for a month's worth of the Daily Wire. It's about the same as what you would get in a movie theater. Or, I mean, what it would cost you for movie tickets to go see, 4 people to go see in a movie theater. It is amazing, the quality of the product that they brought out. And the script writing, everything about the film is just, it left my wife and I kind of both sort of speechless. My wife really enjoyed it, and she usually doesn't get into these kinds of things. She did have to kind of hide her eyes in the beginning, so I will warn you, if you were an animal lover, you're not going to want to watch the first, maybe 5 minutes of it. But that being said, the rest of the movie was just riveting. The quality of the scripting, the lines, the storyline, the plot line. I mean, it was almost as if it was ripped from the headlines for today. It was incredible. And I'm actually, knowing this and knowing, the movie Sound of Freedom now, because I've been kind of holding off. I'll be honest with you. It was kind of one of those things where it's like, I'm okay. I just want to watch, I don't know. I didn't really want to watch the movie necessarily until my wife was like, oh, I'm really interested. I know you've got a Daily Wire subscription. Let's just watch it. And we watched it, and wow, I am just floored. I cannot, again, if you can afford it and you have the desire to go and see it, I find it a highly entertaining movie, something that you definitely should watch. Now, I did watch the documentary, What is a Woman, with, Matt Walsh, and I found that pretty good. So, anyway, it was incredible. The cinematography was good. The acting was spot on. Even the bad guys. I mean, there's times where, you would have the bad guys, it'd be, you wouldn't be convinced. But yeah, this is definitely a movie that if you really want to go see it, if you see it and you think, I just want to see something that's entertaining, that's not being produced by Hollywood, this is definitely a must see, in my opinion. It's a must see. So anyway, I found it, like I said, incredibly suspenseful, dramatic. The acting was beautiful and done very, very well. Very impressed with the product. I was, a little nervous or a little worried about getting, because I've seen some B movies, B-level movies, C-level movies, and been like, whatever. But this is really, really entertaining and really good. Kept us, locked up and entertained for that time. unlike the next subject that I'm going to talk about, who is about as entertaining as eating cardboard rice cakes with nothing on them. This woman, God, and there's a reason, honestly, there's a reason. And yes, I'm going to try and go and find a place and go see Sound of Freedom. Even I hope that even if I don't get to see it in the theaters, even if they offer it up as like a streaming thing, I want to see it. It is called Run, Hide, Fight. It's by the Daily Wire, and I believe Daily Wire is the only place you can get it. I don't think they've released it outside of that. But there's a reason why they don't. They're struggling. The Democrats are struggling with the Joe Biden and Kamala Harris group. And part of it has to deal with the fact that Kamala Harris is just as much, if not more, of a train wreck than Joe Biden. This occurred over the last couple of days. So apparently, Kamala was at a conference of some type and giving a speech. And during the speech, she literally says in the video to reduce the population. It's almost as though when they're not paying attention, they say the quiet part out loud. So, she has Joe Biden fights with the teleprompter. Kamala Harris fights with her own damn tongue. That's literally where we're at with this. But she apparently, and let me see if I'm kind of scanning the article because I sort of have lost where this was, but she was at Coppin State College in Baltimore, Maryland, and she was there to deliver remarks about clean energy. And as a part of that, she said that if we reduce the population, more of us can drink clean water and breathe clean air. Her exact quote was, "When we invest in clean energy and reduce population, more of our children can breathe clean air and drink clean water." What? She wants to, yeah. So, apparently it was bad enough. There's some question as to whether or not it was a teleprompter error, but the White House website apparently uploaded her remarks and crossed out the word population and replaced it with pollution, which is supposed to make more sense. I mean, that does kind of make more sense. When we invest in clean energy and electric vehicles and reduce pollution, more of our children can breathe clean air and drink clean water. Yeah, so she's an embarrassment. She's an embarrassment. I personally think she kind of said the quiet shit out loud. Sorry. Yeah. So, oh my gosh. So anyway, of course the Twitter sphere had to jump in and start talking about it and everything else. But this is part of the reason why, if Joe Biden can't carry the torch for 2024, they are not going to run her. I'm going to tell you that for certain. They are not going to run her. She is just a complete freaking disaster. All right. And speaking of disaster, we all know about the Department of Justice and how they use the FBI to communicate or to censor speech online with third parties and so on and so forth. Well, apparently, according to the Federalist, the DOJ, surprise, surprise, spied on Devin Nunes's staff during the Russian hoax and the subpoenas show. So Devin Nunes obviously has left. She left she. What am I saying? I'm still thinking she, because of Kamala Harris. But anyway, which giving her that, I don't know. Anyway, the DOJ and Devin Nunes actually left and went and became Truth Social's CEO, I believe. But subpoenas apparently, they're where the Department of Justice spied on congressional staff. This is from the Federalist piece. Department of Justice spied on congressional staff working under then Representative Devin Nunes from California as a Republican lawmaker investigating the FBI abuses amid the Russia hoax. On Thursday, House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan sent a letter to FBI Director Christopher Wray. We talked about him last episode. Demanding answers about agency surveillance of Republican staff on Capitol Hill. The letter states, in 2017, Google reportedly received subpoenas for private emails and records belonging to 2 Republican staffers of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, while HPSCI was investigating the FBI's misconduct. These subpoenas only came to light in 2022 due to Google's policy of alerting customers 5 years after law enforcement takes such action. And that was what Jim Jordan wrote. At the time, Nunes was a Republican ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee, while Chairman Adam Schiff ran a deep state campaign to maliciously frame President Donald Trump as a Russian agent. Schiff was censured by the lower chamber last month for abusing his role in the Intelligence Committee and to undermine the legitimacy of the 2016 election. Now, by the way, I see Shifty Schiff's campaign promoted ads on Twitter all the time, and this is all he talks about. All he talks about is holding Trump accountable. And of course, whenever I get the opportunity and feel like it, I always say, accountable for what? For a bunch of lies that never happened or something to that effect. But anyway, yeah, Nunes retired from Congress in January last year to run Trump's online alternative to Twitter, Truth Social. As the number 2 lawmaker on the Intelligence Committee, Nunes was instrumental in pushing back on, pun intended apparently, trumped up claims of Russian collusion. Jordan now wants to know whether the FBI subpoenas to Google seeking information from Nunes' staff were submitted in retaliation for the HSPCI's oversight of the FBI. And of course, John Durham, they mentioned John Durham report that they never should have investigated at all. The FBI had nothing to go on for Crossfire Hurricane. And anyway, so, this is just wide-reaching, wide-spreading kinds of things about the whole Russia hoax and everything else. So anyway, yeah, just a mess. Oh, hey, I just saw this in the chat. Excuse me. I'm going to take a bite. We're going to hop out of the train for just a minute here. And we're going to take a digression here. I got to catch this. Okay. Bam 1356 over on Rumble says Pence got water balloons thrown at him. I did see that. Sorry, Bam, that wasn't Pence. That is actually, and Twitter's community notes actually caught this. It was somebody else, can't remember who, but it apparently is some sort of a festival in the town that it occurred in that commonly includes water balloons. And so the video that Bam is referencing is a girl that threw literally a straight arrow with the water balloon. Now, for anybody that's out there, I mean, water balloons are kind of hard to, do straight at somebody. You have to sort of lob them to get them to hit. Well, this girl apparently threw it and nailed the guy in the head. And of course, in the video, you can't see, at least the video that I saw, you can't see who that person is, but because their back is to them. but he does have white hair. But I believe it's like a local congressman or something like that. And again, it was done at a festival. And it was common practice that the whole part of the festival was the water balloons, because otherwise, I mean, you could, in theory, get, it was some sort of congressman or something like that, or council person, for wherever the place it was. I'd have to look it back up, but I did catch that it wasn't actually Pence. Even though Pence did freaking throw himself under the bus when he was talking to Tucker Carlson. I don't know if anybody saw this video, but Tucker Carlson was calling him out on stuff with Ukraine and sending money to Ukraine. And Pence said something along the lines of starving Americans and Americans having issues with housing and all this other stuff. That wasn't his concern. And so that has been making the rounds quite a bit. I don't exactly think that Mike Pence meant to say that or meant it in the way that he said it, but it was said. And so, yeah, and Tucker just ripped him a new one when it came to that. So anyway, all right. Speaking of the candidates for the Republican primary, let's move on to Governor extraordinaire out in Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis. Apparently, this is according to the Washington Examiner, apparently he was talking to some people about it's when he was being interviewed by Tucker Carlson in Iowa. DeSantis said that he defended his state's 6-week abortion ban, but dodged the question on whether or not he would impose the same 6-week ban at the federal level. Now, here's the thing, okay? Here's the thing with this whole abortion ban, and I've been saying this over and over on Twitter. I've said it here on this program. Abortion is not in the Constitution. It is not a constitutionally mandated item for the federal government to deal with. It is for the states to decide. It is a 10th Amendment issue where it's not written in the Constitution. It's not specifically prohibited by the Constitution to the states. Therefore, it is a state and people issue, not the federal government's business. So the challenge that I have with this, though, is that Ron DeSantis didn't call that out. And I find it hard. I mean, I understand he doesn't want to necessarily alienate people in terms of, getting possibility of getting elected. He doesn't want to alienate a segment of society. But when you do something like that, like this, avoiding a question, avoiding answering a question, those kinds of things, politicians, they just can't. This is why I could never be a politician, because if somebody were to look at me and say, hey, we want you to we think that you and your opponents, your opponents talk about gun control and they want to take all guns away from people. What say you? Obviously I would look at them and say, well, the Second Amendment, unless it's overturned by Congress under the auspices of the Article 5 in the Constitution and then ratified by the states in accordance with Article 5 of the Constitution, I have no opinion or no purpose in doing that. I'm being president of the United States. That's not my purview. It being a part of the executive branch, I would only execute whatever happens. And they can't even do that. I mean, I'm sorry. I keep having a problem with these people. Why? What is wrong with saying it's not part of the Constitution? It is the state legislature's responsibility. That was determined by SCOTUS. with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, with the Dobbs decision, and it falls under the 10th Amendment. I would have more respect for a politician who would literally say that on air in front of the public and point it out. It's the God's honest truth. It's the factual situation with this entire thing. And he just couldn't do it. So I'm sorry. I lost a little bit for Ron with this. At the same time, I also have a problem with Trump doing the exact same thing. I don't really care who it is, but I would love to see a 100% honest politician who knew their shit, okay, who understood this document right here, the Constitution of the United States, knew it backwards and forwards, or even if they pulled it out of their pocket and read from it. I don't care. I would love to see a politician do that, but they can't seem to do it because of the fact that realistically it's all about the votes. And again, this is part of the reason why I can't be a politician. This just, I'm sorry, it irritated me. It did. I stepped up on a damn soapbox, and I'm going to step back off here in just a second, but this irritates the crap out of me. I would love to have a politician who would just stand up there and just answer the facts. Okay? Answer the facts. Anyway. All right. So with all of our choices that we have, one thing that we definitely have to look forward to in terms of the future, we not only have China, and I've talked about this on the program a few times. We not only have China, we have the whole European theater. Biden just sent a whole crap ton, or authorized, I should say, 3,000 troops for the European theater, which according to him is 3,000 support troops for that theater to support operations over there. But this is another little country that we need to be very, very aware of. North Korea. And according to the Ambassador Kim Song, who came to an emergency meeting that was requested by the U.S., France, Albania, Malta, Japan, and the UK, he said that Washington's actions, meaning Washington, D.C., his actions was bringing the Korean Peninsula to the brink of nuclear war. Now folks, this is scary. This is really scary. North Korea spoke at the UN Security Council meeting for the first time. North Korea Ambassador Kim Song claimed that Washington's action was bringing the Korean Peninsula to the brink of nuclear war. By the way, this is coming from an article out of 1945.com. On Wednesday, Pyongyang carried out a second test of its Hwasong-18 solid-fuel intercontinental ballistic missile in the country's latest provocation. While North Korean state-run media outlets described the ICBM launch as a warning to America, Ambassador Kim claimed the test was merely a warranted exercise to safeguard the security of our state. State media KCNA condemned ongoing joint drills between South Korea and the U.S., calling them a trigger for driving the situation on the Korean Peninsula to the point of explosion. Basically, we've been doing some operations, some joint operations over there, partly, I believe, to sort of send a message to China about Taiwan. But at the same time, also, it looks like irritating the hell out of North Korea. Folks, we are living in dangerous times right now. We are probably, I'm about as nervous about this as I was in the 80s with regards to the Cold War. This is not a good situation to be in, and especially given the current president's lack of a foreign ability with foreign, in decision-making capability, this is kind of scary. This is really, really scary. And, we can kind of go through this, but I know that living on the West Coast, as I do, North Korea having an ICBM that could actually reach the U.S., that's a cause for concern, some serious concern. But anyway, we're going to have to keep an eye on this because, again, the whole temperature of the world, and by temperature, I'm not talking about climate change temperature. I'm talking about the whole temperature, the political temperature of the world has increased because of the fact that we do not have a solid, strong presence in the White House. Just literally, we do not have it. We just don't have it. And, so anyway, all right. So, another item on the list here, California, apparently doing what California does, going after more woke BS. They've apparently approved, according to the Epoch Times, they've apparently approved a math curriculum promoting social justice over standard skills. Now, here's the thing. I don't recall in my math classes having any kind of social justice. In fact, part of the reason why I enjoyed math and became an engineer, let's say, for my career, had everything to do with the fact that I didn't have to deal. I mean, it was facts. It's either right or it's wrong. It's either, it's either positive or negative. You can solve it in, one methodology. And once you have that methodology, you can solve pretty much anything. It ran by specific rules that were not to be broken. And so, I just don't understand. How can you sit here? I mean, I got into an argument with my son's 4th grade math teacher once because they were learning this method. They called it the forgiving method. It basically was very similar to the Common Core that you see today. And, we got into an argument once because she, and I probably talked about this on the program at once, but she marked some of his homework sessions wrong. It had to deal with long division because I demonstrated to him how long division actually worked. And of course, when we got done, he looked and he goes, well, this just makes more sense than the crap that they're trying to teach. He didn't say crap, but I said crap. But anyway, he's like, this makes more sense. And so I was like, well, start doing it that way. All you have to do is show your work and she can't mark you down. Well, she started marking him down. And so one of we went in for a parent-teacher conference and I literally looked at her and I asked her, I said, what is wrong with this paper? Why are you marking him down? What is wrong with this homework? And she looked at me and she goes, well, there's nothing wrong with it. I said, well, then why are you marking him down? She goes, because he's not using the forgiving method. I go, why would he use a method that, number one, he doesn't understand, and yet he can get the correct answer and show his work when he's doing the standard long division that people have been taught for nearly a century or more. And it was actually, more centuries, but has been around for very, very long time. And everybody has been taught this way since the start of intelligent thought. I'm like, why are you marking him down for this stuff? And I didn't say anything because I was trying to be, somewhat correct or proper, I guess. And she ended up correcting that, and she no longer messed with him at all in terms of that. And I don't understand this. Why do you have to change something that's working? Why do you have to reinvent the effing wheel? Okay? It just doesn't make sense to me that we have to consistently change the way that we do things. When something is working and it's working for the majority of people, then you pick up the other. I mean, I've instructed college classes. Okay. I've done this in the past. I've instructed many groups of people, and the thing about it is that sorry, Pam, I didn't mean to call you out earlier, but good night. Have a good night. Don't go out embarrassed. I just wanted to correct you. That's all. So anyway, sorry, just in the chat. So anyway, the point that I'm making here is why change things? Why change the wheel? This is just ridiculous to have to bend over backwards and try to teach something that isn't a part of the curriculum. There's no reason for it. No reason for it. All right. Let's see here. So we have a Just the News article, and this is trucking officials. Here's the headline. Trucking officials say a call for zero-emission trucks by environmental groups is unrealistic. Environmental groups on Thursday called Governor J.B. Pritzker's called on J.B. Pritzker to enact clean truck rules, but trucking groups say there is a heavy dose of reality involved. A group of advocates gathered in Chicago and called on Pritzker to adopt the Advanced Clean Trucks, or ACT, and Omnibus Low Nitrogen Oxides, low NOx rules. They said the safeguards will protect workers and communities from air pollution and improve public health after Illinoisans, I probably just mispronounced that, but whatever, suffered a series of historically unhealthy air days in June. Well, yeah, you suffered unhealthy air days because somebody decided to light some freaking fires up in Canada, you dumbasses. Anyway, the executive vice president of Midwest Truckers Association, his name's Don Schaefer, said that modern trucks run much cleaner than in the past. Are we reducing emissions? We've reduced emissions by 90% on most diesel trucks over the last 20 years, so there is progress being made. The state of California, of course, the state of California made an unprecedented move in their effort to electrify big rigs. We talked about that or at least I think we talked about it last episode. The new rules would ban sales of new diesel trucks by 2036 and convert large companies' existing trucks to zero emissions by 2042. A ban on new diesel trucks from rail yards and ports is set to begin next year. Now, you thought COVID was bad? Just wait till some of these things come in. They're already having problems getting trucks in because California banned older trucks from being used down in California truck yards and things like that. So, yeah, just watch how this ban on diesel trucks from rail yards and ports makes a difference in terms of the shipping kinds of things. Just watch what happens. But anyway, the whole green energy thing is just a farce. It is just a complete farce. I've shown you before that green energy is only green when you refuse to look at the other parts of green energy that are actually pollutants, like all of the batteries. We can't recycle them. We can't recycle the batteries. We can't recycle the wind farms. The blades. I've gone through that before. It's all, if you look at the factual evidence, it's not much more. It's not much more than in terms of safe or anything else than any of our other types of energy, fossil fuels and things like that. Plus, they put out less energy overall than a comparable fossil fueled fired either vehicle or generator or whatever. So anyway. All right. And let's see. Last item. So we haven't heard a lot about January 6th prisoners lately, but apparently there's a gentleman, a prisoner, who is taking his obstruction charge actually to the Supreme Court. Now, this is going to be fascinating to watch. In a historic move, so this is from the Epoch Times, in a historic move, a January 6th prisoner has taken his challenge of the infamous obstruction charge levied against him and hundreds of other January 6th prisoners and defendants all the way to the Supreme Court. On July 7th, attorneys for January 6th prisoner Edward Jacob Lang, he's known as Jake, filed a document with the Supreme Court of the United States challenging the government's obstruction of Congress charge, one of the most common felony charges used against the January 6th defendants, which carries a 20-year prison sentence. We filed what's called a writ of certiorari. We know about this. I've talked about this before. It's a request to the Supreme Court to hear an issue. Norm Pattis, the lead attorney for Mr. Lang, told the Epoch Times. Mr. Pattis explained that the legal team is asking the High Court to review the details behind Mr. Lang's alleged violation of Title 18 U.S. Code Section 1512C2, one of the 11 charges being levied against him, according to court documents. And according to the writ, which was obtained by the Epoch Times, Mr. Lang filed a motion to dismiss the Section 1512 count prior to trial. The district court did grant his motion. However, on a consolidated interlocutory appeal to the United States Court of Appeals for the District Columbia Circuit, joined by two similarly situated co-defendants, the court, in a split decision, reversed the district court. So the district court granted his motion, and then the Court of Appeals, which is above that, went ahead and reversed that decision. So they've taken it to the Supreme Court now. And so this is going to be interesting to watch. I kind of hope it actually succeeds, to be honest with you, because that could help clear up a whole bunch of stuff in the whole January 6th thing. But this is going to be one to watch. I'm going to have to keep an eye on this one and let you guys know what happens after that. All right. We're rounding down to the toward the end of the program, and so of course it is time for questions for whiskey. All right, tonight's question comes from my good old Rumble buddy over there, 3 Chevy, and he asks, "Hey whiskey." Required opening. I was just thinking about how I lost all respect for a supervisor I once had when he bragged about how he got out of jury duty once by claiming he couldn't speak anything but Puerto Rican. Sure enough, the next day I get a summons for about 3 weeks of potential jury duty. My question is, does jury duty vary from state to state in any way, or is every single aspect of it laid out in the Constitution with no room for interpretation by any state? Thanks for all the work you put into the show. Thank you very much, sir. And he signs it 3 Chevy. All right. So here's the thing. To answer this question, there are 2 levels of courts, okay? You have the federal court, which pretty much that's kind of set in stone. Doesn't matter what state you're in. If you go in for federal jury duty, if you get pulled for federal jury duty, it basically is going to be the same no matter where you are, because of course it is a federal court. The changes happen when it comes to each individual state courts. Okay. So the federal courts, in terms of juries and jury trials, they have to follow, and let me pull this up here. they have to follow 28 U.S. Code, Chapter 121, and they have to follow this code, selections, how much people get paid, so on and so forth, in terms of, how things are carried on. This is, again, for federal court. Okay. Now, where it changes is down at the state level. So at the state level, and this comes from juryduty101.com, down at the state level, they operate very similarly as the federal court. I mean, let's be honest, there's really not a whole heck of a lot of detail in terms of, what you're supposed to do as a jurist. And so, there are some things that will be changed or modified slightly, but generally speaking, even at the state level, they all kind of run about the same way. Okay. But here's an example. So in Arizona, to be a juror, to qualify to be a juror and who can be summoned as a juror, you have to be at least 18 years of age. You have to be a citizen of the United States. You have to be a resident of the jurisdiction in which you're summoned to serve. You have to never be convicted of a felony unless your civil rights have been restored. And you can't be currently adjudicated as mentally incompetent or insane. Now, if you go to Colorado as a second example, you have to be a citizen of the United States, at least 18 years of age, a resident of the county in which the summons, or you were living there for more than 50% of the time. So see kind of the difference. You don't necessarily have to be a resident. You only have to have lived there. You only have to be living there 50% of the time in order to get called. Okay. And have the ability to read, speak, and understand English. Now, Arizona didn't have that as a requirement. And then, of course, they say, be of sound mind, so on and so forth. So, each state, and if you're really interested, you can go and take a look at some of these states, but each state, and here, let me see, there was another one that had, so Alaska's age limit is actually over the age of 19. And in order to qualify, you have to have been a resident for more than 1 year. So in other words, if you move to Alaska, your first year, you can't get called for jury duty. So each state does have some variances, but it is on a state by state level as far as that is concerned. Okay. But in terms of federal court, if you're going to federal court, then you have some federal, it pretty much everybody follows the same rules in federal court. So, and then of course, how they get selected can sometimes be, different as well. So for an example, in Alabama, it says, a pool of potential jurors is randomly selected from the local population of individuals eligible, but they don't necessarily clearly state what's eligible and what's not. But I know like here in Washington, it's pulled based off of our driver's license and, I think it's voter registration as well, which is common across a lot of people. So, Okay. So it looks like, Alabama pulls their people from voter rolls, which is common. But some actually will pull it from driver's licenses too, for like the driver's license pool or whatever. And then of course you'll have different, differences in terms of how you can respond, to a jury duty summons. You'll have different reasons sometimes that you can, skip jury duty. You'll have different reasons for how you can get out of, jury duty and stuff like that. So there are some differences. And some states, like you can see here, Alabama does have a particular dress code. They don't want you walking in your pajamas, for an example. And again, most courtrooms, they kind of all sort of fail or follow along the same lines, business casual attire, to business attire, that kind of stuff. So, again, there are some nuances and different changes, but in terms of specifics, but yeah, it just depends upon the state, and it's all at the state level. The federal level is totally the same no matter where you are. Now, I've never been pulled for federal jury duty, but I have been called a couple times here for Superior Court, for state Superior Court. So anyway, there we go. That is tonight's question for Whiskey. So if you want to submit your question for Whiskey, you can do so by sending me an email with your question to fans, FANS, at whiskeymusings.online. That's fans, FANS, at whiskeymusings.online. And that is my final Whiskey Musings slot of the evening. And do me a favor, if you like the program, if you like what I do and you like the content, head on over to Rumble, sign up for an account. It's free. And subscribe, follow, they call it following, I guess. Follow the Whiskey Musings Broadcast channel. And we will see you on Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, right here, same bat channel, not the same bat time, but same bat channel, for the next Whiskey Musings broadcast. You guys have a great rest of your weekend. I do appreciate you being here, and we'll see you next time on the Whiskey Musings broadcast. Good night, everybody.
The Whiskey Musings broadcast is produced by Active Eye Media, LLC. All rights reserved.